I am so excited to be able to share with you 10 new Dollar Tree DIYs that look high-end. I get it. High-end is so subjective, but in my opinion, these are the kind of decor pieces that you would find if you walked into like a Pottery Barn, Anthropologie, West Elm, and I can't wait to share with you and show you how I made them for so much less. Hello and welcome. If you are new, my name is Jennifer and this is a little bit of Common Crazy. If you see something that you like or you learn something new, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button. If you are returning, thank you so much. As always, I am glad to have you here. If you don't know it, you can find me on Instagram. It is a little bit of Common Crazy over there, just like it is here, and I love to share with you a lot of behind the scenes as well as hauls. Now let's get into it. In this project, I'm sharing with you how I made these beautiful wooden hurricane candle holders. So I'm starting with these wooden snakes. I picked these up in the Crafter Square section at Dollar Tree. To begin with, I'm taking my miter shears and I'm snipping off both the head and the tail. You also want to snip off a couple sections of the body. You're cutting the snake so it will fit around one of the hurricane bases from Dollar Tree. So you're going to take your snake, you're going to measure it around, and that will tell you if cutting 2 was enough or if you might need to go ahead and cut 3 of those body segments. To secure the snake or the wooden piece into a ring, all I'm doing is using some wood glue to do that. And I'm adding it just a little dab on the inner part of that. I wanted the inner part to close, but the outer part with the slits to be able to still expand open once it was around the hurricane part. To keep that held close while the wood is drying, I'm just using some painter's tape on the top and the bottom to hold that nice and tight. Once I had all 3 rings done and the glue was completely dried, then it was time for me to go in and stack those on top of each other. So again, going in with that wood glue, I just take the wood glue around that first ring, stack that second ring on top of that, add some wood glue to that second ring, stack the third ring on top of that, and then for some added weight so that I made sure that these could really adhere to each other, I'd added a board and a can of paint and left it alone so that it could completely dry. Once it was all set, all I needed to do was add that hurricane in with the candle. I slid that right on in. I absolutely love this. For the taller one, I did 5 snakes instead of 3. For the pair, it only cost me $10 in store. You definitely pay more for this. In my opinion, I definitely think these are high-end looking. I adore these. I think they are beautiful, and I am proud to display them in my home. For this project, I'm sharing with you how I made this bronze jack, star, whatever you want to call it. So I'm using these little wooden snakes. Again, you find these in the crafter section at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using 6 of these in order to create this jack. You also need 1 of the little wooden cube pieces that you also find in the crafters section. So starting off, I'm using my miter shears and I'm cutting off the tail of each of the snakes. Now, if you did the previous project, you already have all of your tails and they've already been cut. To begin with, you do want to make sure the end of your tail or the larger part of the tail is nice and smooth. So I'm just taking those and I'm rubbing them onto a 60 grit sandpaper and making sure that those are all nice and smooth. Once I make sure all 6 pieces are nice and smooth, now it's time to attach them to the cube. I chose to go in with wood glue. Honestly, using some like super glue gel would have been a really good alternative because then you could have kind of kept moving a lot faster instead of having to wait in between each tail drying like I did. But again, the wood glue is really nice and secure. I didn't mind waiting. I had things to do, but this is what mine looked like as I was holding the different pieces together while they were drying. I did use some painter's tape to keep them together. Really, it's just a personal preference. If you like to use gel super glue, go for it. If you want to use the wood glue, go for it. Either one of them, they're going to get the job done. Once it completely dried, I went ahead and I took some Rust-Oleum gold paint. It's a beautiful gold. It's my favorite gold. I took it out to the spray tent, gave it a really good coat of that gold, and once that dried, then it was time for me to give it that bronze effect. And the way that I did that, I took a little bit of Waverly's chalk paint and ink and mixed it with some water and really thinned it out to create more like a stain. And then I'm using a makeup sponge in order to kind of dab it on in areas and then kind of wipe it back as well because I don't want it to be too heavy in any one particular spot. Continue doing this as you go around the star, the jack, whatever you want to call this, until you have it completed and you'll have this beautiful bronze decor piece that only cost fractions of what you would pay in store. I was looking online and I saw these selling up to like $50, $60. I just think it's such a fun little decor piece. I'm excited to share with you how I put together this beautiful large wreath. So starting off with, I have one of the smaller hula hoops from Dollar Tree. I prefer to use a smaller one. You could go with the larger one depending on the size of your door. So I'm using Rust-Oleum's gold spray paint in order to cover the hula hoop and give it more of that metallic look and faux metal look. Once it's completely covered and dry, I'm using these roses from Dollar Tree. I think they're beautiful, peachy, blushy, cream colors. I absolutely love them. So I'm just using my wire cutters and I'm snipping them off. I do make sure I push up the leaves first because I do want the leaves to be a part of it. And I just trim off just about 1.5 inches from the top or the bottom of the rose. I do have to go back in and trim a little bit more as I'm putting them in because you won't need very much as you push them into the foam itself. I use a total of 7 bunches of roses in order to create this wreath. To prep this hula hoop, I'm taking this floral foam that I pick up at Dollar Tree. This comes together with 4 separate pieces, and I'm just using the square ruler in order to take out a little notch by angling it down and creating like a little V shape. Once I've done that to all 4 pieces, then I just use some hot glue to adhere the foam pieces onto the hula hoop. Now I go in with a generous size amount of that hot glue. I'm not like trying to be stingy with it. I want to make sure I use plenty of it, so I really put it into that little groove that I cut out or notched out with that square ruler, and then I place the floral foam just right around the hula hoop. I do that to all 4 pieces, and now it's time to go in with my roses. I start off by applying the roses to the top foam and the bottom foam, making sure that I cover up the edges and the top all the way around, and then I fill in the center pieces because you don't want to see any of that floral foam no matter what direction. So once I have it all covered up and all filled in with all the roses, now it is time to go in and add my little banner hello, and I'm using these little wooden domino pieces that I picked up in the kids section or the toy section at Dollar Tree. So I am taking a total of 15 of these domino pieces, and I'm using 3 per letter. So I'm taking 2 of them, and then on the back side I'm just using some hot glue in order to secure 2 of the pieces together. And I go ahead and I do that for all 5 different little banner pieces. Once I have them all hot glued together, I use these black stickers and I spell out the word hello. To secure them onto the hula hoop, I'm using some twine. I go ahead and I tie that onto the hula hoop at a diagonal, and then it's time to attach these. Again, I want to use some hot glue. So I take some popsicle sticks, I trim them down using my miter shears, and then I position the popsicle sticks using some hot glue just around the twine and the little tag or banner and pop that right on. Once I have them all 5 on, this is ready to go. I think it is adorable, it's elegant, it's beautiful. I absolutely love it. For this DIY, I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful marble cake stand. Dollar Tree carries both the faux marble plates and bowls, and I think they're so beautiful. So all you're going to do first is just to remove the stickers. I use a heat gun in order to remove those super easily. Once those are removed, I'm going in with some E6000 in order to attach them to each other to give them a permanent hold. I just apply that to the bottom of the bowl, attach that to the bottom of the plate. I let that set up and cure. I normally just let that stay overnight, and there you have a beautiful, super easy and elegant cake stand, and it's so fun to style it in so many different ways. I'm so excited to share with you how I made these black stained wood tassel beads. I'm using some wood beads that I purchased from Amazon. I'm using 20mm and 16mm wooden beads, but you can also use either the pearls or the wood beads that you can grab from Dollar Tree if you want to, and just spray paint them instead. Now I'm going in with Waverly's chalk paint and ink. I'm adding it to a jar with some water, and I'm thinning that out in order to create like a faux stain. I'm dumping all of the beads inside. I have a total of 15 of the 20mm and 30 of the 16mm, and I'm just shaking them around until they're nice and coated, and then I dump them into a bowl, and then I'm putting them onto their like this is like a work rag, and I'm rubbing off any of the excess paint.
and really getting in there. If I felt like a bead had way too much paint, I did go ahead and like add a little extra water and did like a wet distressed to get some of that extra paint off there, because I really did want the wood to still come through. I didn't want to lose all of that wood look. I really wanted to have these beads have a variant of color and not be solid black. Once the paint had dried, I took a piece of twine and I added some washi tape to the end in order to stiffen that up and make it easier to thread the beads through. To thread the beads, I started with a smaller bead and then I went to a larger bead, and then 2 smaller, 1 larger, 2 smaller, 1 larger, and I continued that pattern until I had all of the beads onto the twine. After that, I made sure that I knotted off each of the ends, leaving a little loop on both sides. Now to add the tassels, I did that a little bit separately. So I took a piece of twine and I wrapped it around my fingers 30 times. Depending on the size or the thickness of the tassel you want, you may want to wrap it around your hands less times or more times. So that's completely up to you. Once I had them wrapped around my fingers, I pulled that off. I snipped the bottom to open that up. I threaded it through the loop that was on the beads. And then I took another piece of twine, I wrapped that around the top part, knotted that off, and now I have the tassel, but I still needed to trim that up and make it look a little bit more perfected or smoother or even. We'll say that. It needed to be even. I repeated the exact same thing to the other end. I wanted tassels on both ends, so I wrapped around my fingers 30 times. I opened that up on the end, threaded that through the loop, tied that off by wrapping some twine around it several times, knotted that off to close that up, and then evened out the bottom of my tassel, and my little stained wood beads were all done. I absolutely love this. Definitely different than having just regular raw wood stain or stained beads. I love the black. I thought it was a great contrast. I think I will get so much use out of these. In this DIY, I'm showing you how I made this really beautiful sunburst. So to start off with, I am using a glass trivet and a frameless mirror. Now to begin with, I'm going to take some contact paper from the Dollar Tree and trace around the mirror so that I can get a size of that. I cut that out and I peeled apart the contact paper and placed it right on top of the mirror. I did that for 2 reasons. First, so I don't blind you with all my camera and stuff like that while I'm showing you everything. And second, when I go to paint this later on, the mirror is protected from the spray paint. After that, I used my heat gun in order to heat up the adhesive under the sticker so that I could remove that easily. And I heated up the adhesive that was underneath the little foam footings that were on the mirror so I could scrape those off. I did the exact same thing to the footings that were on the trivet as well, so when I go to hang that, it will hang flush. I'm using E6000 in order to attach the mirror to the trivet. Once I get it applied, I just leave it alone. I let that set up. Now to do the sunburst part itself, I'm using the 12-inch dowels that you can pick up at Dollar Tree. I chose to use those because it was easier to go ahead and just cut all the sizes that I need, and I would need fewer and could save myself some money. So altogether, you are going to need a total of 66 dowels. That's a total of 7 packs of the dowels altogether. I worked in groups to make things go faster, so here I'm measuring at the 3-inch mark, so I'm cutting a 3-inch and a 9-inch at the same time. I use my miter shears in order to cut these. A total of 32 9-inch dowels is what I'm needing, and then I will need a total of 64 3-inch. So after I did the 9-inch, I did have to go back in and cut several 3 inches in order to finish out to make sure I had 64. I also took the 12-inch dowels. I measured them in half so I could get 6 inches, used my miter shears again, and I cut a total of 32 6-inch dowels as well. To apply the dowels, I'm going in with some gel super glue because it is quick acting, and that is exactly what this project called for. For the bottom layer, I'm just alternating between the 9-inch and the 6-inch all the way around, just making sure that I space them evenly as I go around. Once I have that completed, they're all set up. I then go back in with the 3-inch, and in between where there's a gap, that's where I apply the 3-inch again with the super glue, and I add those all the way around. Once everything's been applied, the glue has set, I take it out to my spray tent using the gold spray from Rust-Oleum. I give it a good spray with that. When that dries, I remove the contact paper, and then I can hang it up. I always like to use command strips when I hang things up. I absolutely love this. I think it is beautiful, and it only cost me $9 to make it. It's so easy to convert a simple vase into a more high-end looking vase simply by taking whatever style of vase that you like. This one I picked up at Dollar Tree. I love the texture of this vase. However, the color doesn't quite match my decor, and you will see a theme in this video. I'm absolutely loving gold, and it is so on trend with everything. What's great is all metals will work, and you can mix and match the different metals. So again, going in with Rust-Oleum's gold spray paint, I took this out to my spray tent. I gave it a good coat of that. Once it completely dried, I added in these beautiful peonies that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I just love the gold vase with a pop of color. It is absolutely just a statement piece. For this project, I want to share with you how I made this really whimsical wreath for spring. So to start off with, I have these two wreath forms that came from Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the twine that is around each one of these so that I can combine them two together. So once I have the twine off, I put them together and I just kind of fit them as best as I can. So don't worry, if you get two that are the same size, or like mine, if they're different sizes, either way, this will absolutely work because you can kind of manipulate them once the twine is off. Then you get a new piece of twine, you tie it on, and then you just start wrapping it around, holding the two wreaths together as you go around, and then just squeezing them in the areas that you have to, and then just keep working your way around. Now, I personally decided to go around a second time just to really make sure that it was nice and secure, and then when I got to the very end again, I tied another knot to finish it all off. Now that the wreath form is beefier and chunkier, it's time to decorate it, and I'm using these little mini roses from Dollar Tree. I think they are so delicate and beautiful. I absolutely love them, and I use my wire cutters in order to clip them apart from one another. In the end, I went in and I'm only using 4 bunches, 1 in each color, and that's all it took in order to fill out this wreath. I just took each one of the little rose stems that I had cut off. I bent the center so it had a nice little curvature and would hug the wreath, and then I just shoved it into the twigs in order for it to hold. There was no hot glue needed for this. Just by shoving it in, that was all that it needed. I just altered the colors as I went and had like a random pattern. I really love the way that this turned out. I think it is so beautiful, and it absolutely screams spring. It is so hard to believe that this wreath only cost $6 because I think it is absolutely stunning. You would easily pay like $25, $30 for this if you purchased it in store. So for this project, I want to show you how I made this really simple modern boho style decor piece. So starting off with, I have this pack of 2 of these smaller wreath forms that you can get at Dollar Tree. I'm only going to be using 1 of them, and taking my wire cutters, I went ahead and I snipped the rings apart, and then I snipped off the extra center pieces that I will no longer need. I only want to have the rings themselves. Now you will have a little bit of those center pieces still left. Don't worry, we're going to cover those up. After that, I'm going in with some raffia and my hot glue, and I'm just going to start off by using some hot glue to secure the raffia down, and then I'm just going to be wrapping the raffia around, adding a little hot glue each time I need to start a new piece of raffia, and just keep working my way all the way around until it is completely covered. I do that with all 3 rings. Once all 3 rings are completely covered, I go ahead and I put them all together, and then I join them at the bottom, and I take some more raffia and I wrap it around the bottom in order to secure all 3 of those rings together. The raffia on the bottom serves 2 purposes. One, it stabilizes the 3 rings as they are together, and it gives a surface area for the stand to adhere to once we put it together. So for the stand, I'm going in with these tumbling tower pieces. I'm going to be using a total of 10 of these. So I take them in sets of 2, and I'm using super glue, or the gel super glue, in order to attach them together. And I do 2 together, and then another 2 together, and then put 4 together. So I have 2 sets of 4, and then I have another set that has a total of 6 together, and the 6 is what's going to end up being the base. Now once that's dry, I don't want it to look like pieces of wood put together. I want it to look like a solid piece. So I'm going in with some wood filler, and I'm filling in the lines. It starts off pink. When it turns white, that's when you know that it's dried. I made sure that I got it into all the cracks on the front, on the back, and the sides as well. So once I had it all dried, I did go in with a 220 grit sandpaper, and I sanded everything nice and smooth. Once I had it sanded, then I went in with Waverly's chalk paint and white. I painted all of my wood pieces, let that dried, and then it was time to assemble my little 3-ring stand. I'm using gel super glue in order to attach the 3 rings to the wooden stand. So I apply a little bit to the raffia, and then I place the rings onto the wood piece, and then I apply a little bit more gel super glue on top, and I apply the second wood piece on top of that. In order to make sure that those are lined up and even, I just go ahead and I put the base right there and make sure that those are exactly where I want them while the super glue is setting up. Once the super glue is set up, I put a little bit of gel on the bottom of each of those pieces, and then push those down right onto that base, held that in place while that set up. Once that set up, this was all done. It was easy breezy. It took a little bit of time, but I think it was well worth it. I absolutely love this. I think it's one of those pieces that doesn't take up a lot of visual space, but really does add to decor. I really have a hard time calling this a DIY. It's really more of a hack. I wanted some beautiful coasters that I could have out so that I don't get water rings on my table, and I found the Life is Beautiful at Dollar Tree, actually both of these sets at Dollar Tree, but I wanted a coordinating set, and a lot of times I just like to have some plain ones that go with some words. So I got these black ones, but I didn't want them to be black or have the words on them, so I used some gold spray paint. I took it out to my spray tent, gave them a good coat of that spray paint, and now I have this beautiful, elegant set of coasters. I also think that these would make a wonderful gift for somebody. I absolutely love them. If you're looking for more inspiration, here are a couple more videos that I picked out for you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.